Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. Man, if any of you guys missed football this weekend, you might have missed the best weekend of football, playoff football, in the history of the NFL. You talking about epic. My goodness, epic. But first, before we get to the weekend and a little bit of Eagles talk this week, want to acknowledge Sean Payton stepped down as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints today. Very interesting proposition. He's been there, I believe, 16 years, won a Super Bowl with the team. The team hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years until Sean Payton and Drew Brees took over the helm there. Drew Brees retired last year. They had some issues with Mike Thomas, their number one wide receiver, with an ankle injury. Didn't get operated on until late in the year. He missed the entire year. And it was just a tough year for the Saints from a quarterback standpoint. First, they had Jameis Winston as the starter. Then he got injured. I was out for the year. Just a series of different quarterbacks. Ian Book plays Simeon. I forget Simeon's last name. Trevor Simeon actually played for a while. And then, their utility guy, my goodness, today I can't remember names. Anyhow, you guys know who he is. He played for a while, and I just got to believe that this step away has more to do with when you watch the playoff football this past weekend, it is pretty evident that you've got to have an elite level quarterback to be able to compete for a Super Bowl when you get down to the last 4 teams, as you saw. Sean Payton doesn't have that. He doesn't have that in the least little bit right now. And I think that between not having a franchise player at the quarterback position, Taysom Hill, thank you, Adam. Taysom Hill, not having an elite level quarterback and having issues with players on your roster, and not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel as far as that quarterback position is concerned, may have a lot to do with why, Sean Payton has decided to step away from the game. I don't think he's done. I think he's too good of a head coach to be done. But I think that, he'll take a year off, maybe 2 years off, and then get back into it in a situation that's much more advantageous for him, meaning a position where he can step into an organization that has a franchise quarterback that he can build his football team around. Now, let's jump over to, the Eagles for a little while before we jump into the playoff weekend. And boy, what a weekend it was. I read a quote where Howie Roseman, I guess, in his end of the year press conference with he and Nick Sirianni, he pretty much said that, hey, listen, we have, because everybody's been talking about these 3 first-round draft picks that they have. They picked 15th, 16th, and 19th overall. And there's been a lot of talk about what the Eagles should do with these picks. Should they, trade 2 of them to move back up, in the top 10 to be able to, get an impact player. I think they can get impact players at 15 and 16, but I'm not against them moving back and maybe snagging another first rounder from next year in the process of being able to do it. But the Eagles got a lot of needs, and there's been a lot of chatter about what they should do with these picks. And Howie said, listen, we're not going to deviate from what we believe and how we believe we should build a football team. My big question is, how's that worked out for us? You know, we had a great draft this year with our first 2 picks. We kind of stumbled the last couple of years with Jalen Reagor and Jay Jaw and some of the picks that, you know, just haven't, you know, come into fruition as of yet. I would submit that something has to change in the approach about how you believe that you build a team. We've got a good offensive line. We got, you know, with BG coming back next year, you know, we've got some good pieces at the defensive end position. But when I look at what the Eagles need an impact defensive end. And I'm not talking about a tweener, a guy that's 6'3", 260 pounds. I'm talking about a bona fide, you know, 6'5", 6'6", 6'4", you know, 270, 280-pound guy that you can play over on the right side to face everyone's best offensive tackle. A guy that, you know, that's a bona fide, proven pass rusher on the collegiate level that you evaluate and believe that he can take the next step at the next level and be able to give you similar production. A guy that's going to give you double-digit sacks every year. A guy that can play the run. A guy that can man that side. They need linebacker help. PFF has graded out the 2 starting linebackers for the Philadelphia Eagles in the 40s and the 50s. That's not good enough. There are linebackers there. Lloyd is there. Dean is there. So you got to reevaluate how you look at that. They need a safety, an impact safety, not just a safety, a guy that can make plays. They need a cornerback to complement Darius Slay on the other side. And dare I say, because the Eagles have drafted, I believe, 11 wide receivers in the last 12 drafts. I think the numbers are. Dare I say that they go after another wide receiver, because as I look at it, Quez Watkins didn't live up to the billing. Jalen Reagor is a guy that, you know, I'm hearing a lot of chatter that maybe, you know, Jalen Reagor needs to be somewhere else. He needs a fresh start outside of Philadelphia. I wouldn't disagree with that. And then, you know, we don't know what happened to John Hightower. He got hurt early, but he never reemerged as a guy that could step in. And Greg Ward's a good fit, but for some reason or another, they don't see enough in Greg Ward to believe that they've got, you know, that he could ever emerge as a number 2 guy. So right now they got a number 1 in Devontae Smith, and they got a bunch of number 3s, a bunch of 3s, and a bunch of 4s. They need a number 2 guy. They need a guy that can take the pressure off of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. What they do with these 3 picks remains to be seen. Now, to end all of this, let's talk about the quarterback play. A lot of chatter. You know, I think Philadelphia is divided. Not only the fans, but the media is divided on whether the Eagles should seek another quarterback to come in here and take over the helm, or whether we should give Jalen Hurts, you know, another year. I'm of the opinion that Jalen Hurts deserves another year, because if this weekend didn't prove to everyone, and I'm not talking about just the quarterback play, I'm talking about from a team perspective, the Eagles aren't close to being competitive in the playoff realm, okay? It's not just the quarterback. An efficient quarterback is not going to step in right now and make this team better, okay? So now you got a full year to give to Jalen Hurts next year. Familiarity with the coaching staff, with the system, with players that he's playing with. Now you create a situation where you can continue to build the roster and kind of plug the holes and allow these guys to get one more year of experience. These young guys that you bring in through the draft, I believe the Eagles have 11 picks, you know, and they've got to find a few diamonds in the rough in the mid to later rounds that just step out, you know, and establish themselves. If they can do that, and Jalen Hurts can get better next year, if he can improve next year, and I believe that he can. A lot of people don't, but I believe that he can. I think that, you know, the first 3 years is the most critical time for any player in the NFL. There are some anomalies. You get guys like Herbert and guys like Allen in their second year to just, you know, elevate and take it to a whole nother level. You get guys like Mahomes that comes in in his first 4 years in the league, boom, he's in the playoffs every year. Those are anomalies. There's not very many guys that really do it that way. There is a maturation process. There is a building up process, not only from the standpoint of how they progress, but as a team, how you progress and how you get to a level where you can compete as far as the playoffs are concerned. Hey, leave your comments, leave your opinions, leave your suggestions in the comment box. Also, as this show goes on and we get into a little more of the playoffs, leave your NFC and AFC Championship scores, your predictions. I'll gladly jump in there and answer some of those after the show is over. But to help me break down this phenomenal weekend of playoff football, good buddy of mine, good buddy of my buddy from the University of Miami, when Jerome Brown, you guys see the jersey up there. Played with him at the University of Miami when Dan Sileo, host of the Dan Sileo Show. Dan, how you doing, man?
All good, man. Thanks so much for having me, man. It's an honor to be on with you. Seth, believe me, JB back in the day, man, he goes, my brother, Seth Joyner and all them dudes, man, that played on Gang Green, Reggie, and all the things that he used to tell me, all these crazy stories about you guys and how much fun you guys used to have. He goes, hey, man, you know what? Reggie talks in the tongues. You'll never believe it. And all these crazy stories he used to tell me about you guys. But I'll tell you one thing, man. You guys were ballers. You guys were savants of the game. One of the best defenses in my lifetime was that Buddy Ryan Gang Green defense. And it's really an honor to be here with you, man. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure, man. It was great. I was on your show a couple of weeks back, and I figured it's time for me to return the favor. And what a great time, to actually have you on the show. Give me your opinion about what you saw in playoff football over the weekend, because to me, it was just incredible. And it was the tale of two different days. The Saturday games were, defensive minded. The Sunday games was just elite quarterback level play.
I think you nailed it, man, when you said it was all about really true team defense, truly team offense. It was about complete teams winning ball games. Think about this for a second. Joe Burrow sacked 9 times. He still wins the ball game. They turn around and they make plays. No one's phased. They end up moving down the chains. They kick and they get a kickoff win against the Titans, knock the number 1 seed out. Take a look at the quarterbacks who are knocked out. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about complete team effort that the Niners went up to Lambeau. As you know, Kansas City, Lambeau, and Denver, some of the toughest places in the world to win a ball game. They go up there and they don't score an offensive touchdown, and they beat the Packers there at Lambeau Field and knock Rodgers out of the number 1 seed. This was about complete teams and special teams, defense, great situational play calling, everything that was on display. That Sunday game, I'm going to tell you, Seth, there's no doubt everybody in the league went like this. I want one of those guys. And if that didn't really do this to Sean Payton, he looked at his room. He went, hang on here, man. I got Taysom Hill. I've got Jameis Winston. There ain't a dude in that room right now that I have that's going to compete with those guys. Mm-hmm. There is no question. Elite quarterback play moves the sticks for you. But just think of this. Jimmy Garoppolo is moving on to the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. He's closer to being what Jalen Hurts is, okay? He's not ever going to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. But if you could build a complete team around Jalen Hurts, you can own the NFC. Let's just hypothetically do this, Seth. Let's pretend here that Rodgers retires, Brady leaves the game. Who's going to run the NFC? Dak? Kyler Murray? Stafford? If the Eagles do this thing right in the offseason here, they could put themselves in a position with those 11 draft picks and 3 first-round picks to where they're going to be a force in the NFC. And then you look at all those plays and all those things that went on with those elite ball teams. You got a chance to really make a statement here if you're Howie Roseman, and you've got to look like one of those teams that we saw over the weekend. I got to tell you, man, that's the best football. And even the old school veteran guys like yourself and myself, we were doing this. That's the best game I've ever seen, that Bills and Chiefs game. Some of those games were just amazing. I've never seen a divisional round like that in my life.
Well, listen, as far as the Eagles are concerned, the thing that worries me about, Howie's comment is the fact that, he says that we've got a process in a way that we want to, build our roster. That's scary to me. It's scary to me because, they haven't made all the right decisions and all the right steps. Now, I give Howie credit because he took a lot of heat last year, and a lot of people felt like if Doug Peterson was fired, then Howie should have been right out the door with him, if not in front of him. That wasn't the case. And I said as the draft, got closer, I said, you're not going to see Howie Roseman go off the ranch, and pick some guy like Jalen Reagor or J-Jar when you got all of these talented players, that are on the board. I say he's going to stick to the board. He's going to stick to the best available player, and he's not going to deviate from that whatsoever with these first-round picks because he can ill afford to have another misstep. I think that you'll see him do the same things, this coming draft. My reservation is, Dan, is that they don't believe that you win with defense. They're going to look at the Tampa Bay game and the Chiefs game, and they're going to say, we need an elite level quarterback like that. And we're going to have to do whatever we have to do to be able to get one because that's the only way that you can win. But you look at Jimmy Garoppolo the last 2 weeks trying to throw the game away and the defense saving them, okay? And the running game saving them. And Deebo Samuel's saving them. So if you go and you find the right pieces and you build a defense that can be dominant in the pass rush, then you can get it done. The other reservation I have is when you think about one Jonathan Gannon and the way that he plays defense. When I look at some of these defenses, listen, it didn't work out for a lot of these defenses, but many of these defenses were much more aggressive. I mean, 9 sacks in one game. Are you kidding me? Tom Brady sacked 4 times. Are you kidding me? The guy who really knows how to get rid of the football. But that shows you that these teams not only have good players up front that can rush the passer, but they got defensive coordinators that are very, very creative and with ways and how they go about pressuring the quarterback and speeding up their clock and forcing them into, either taking a sack or having, huge, making bad decisions. That's the thing that worries me about Howie Roseman and that comment that he made, that although he'll take the guy that he feels is the best player at that position, the Eagles need to retool their defense. And if they can retool their defense and get some other pieces on the offensive side and that allows Jalen Hurts to continue to grow, we could look like the San Francisco 49ers, if you will, until Jalen grows up and grows into the game. And I think by 5 or 6 games next year that the light will go off for him, the game will begin to slow down, and you'll see a completely different quarterback. Now, I don't think we ever going to want Jalen to come out and throw the ball 35, 40 times, 50 times a game. That shouldn't be the mantra. You got a solid offensive line that's probably ranked in the top 3 offensive lines in the NFL. Use that to your advantage with the running game and then go play action and allow Jalen to use his athleticism, and his ability, to play the game better as he grows from that standpoint. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Super Bowl Eagle team, I've said this to everybody that, that I come in contact with, they won that game and they won that Super Bowl because they had the best tandem of O-line, defensive line at the time than anybody in the league. Just remember what they did to the Patriots in that Super Bowl. They beat the hell out of them. By the end of the game, there was a white flag that was being raised. And if you remember the following Super Bowl, the Patriots did the same thing to the Rams. They beat them up. When you have a dominant defensive line and a dominant offensive line, you are in every football game. I don't care about Y's and Z's, which are wide receivers. Look at what Brady won with. Edelman, Amendola, Wes Welker. I could care less about those guys out there. The dudes in the pits are what going to move the chains. Think about this game over the weekend with Rams and Bucks. Brady sucked for 3 quarters because Donald was in his face. Von Miller was in his ear, and they were able to put pressure on him. Brady being Brady expanded in the fourth quarter, got it to 27-27, but still the entire game, Donald and pressure. Look at what happened in San Francisco, the Packer game. The defense, like you said, Seth, they held that football team to 10 points. The Packer team at home, 10 points. When you're dominant at the point of attack, hey, this game hasn't changed since 1920. If you can run the ball and you can stop the run, you're in every freaking ball game you will be in, no matter what it is. The passing yards, in my opinion, is the most overrated stat in the NFL. How many times, Seth, have you and I seen a team throw for 400 or 500 yards and lose? You run for 250 yards, you're winning that ball game because you know why? I tell folks this all the time. When you have a team run the ball 200 yards on you, it's like having one hand tied behind your back and you're getting the hell beat out of you and you can't stop because you're sitting on the sidelines and you're going like this. I don't care if you're Brady, Mahomes, Josh Allen. When you're sitting on the sidelines and the team's running the ball on you like that and they're putting these 12-play drives together and they're clocking up 10 minutes on you, you can't win those ball games because what they're doing, they're limiting possessions to you. You're right on this side of the aisle here when it comes to the Eagle defense. Dude, Jonathan Gannon and that soft press coverage he has or lack thereof press coverage, this guy plays that zone. I mean, when you play against Brady or Rodgers or somebody that's an efficient quarterback, they're going to go 80% in completions.
Yeah.
They're going to play better teams because they made the playoffs. Hoss, you're not going to be in a position where you can throw that soft-ass coverage out there and you're going to be able to go against these elite quarterbacks. You got to be press coverage out there. That's why, to me, Seth, they need a corner on the other side of Slay. You got to stop these guys because, look, if you're going to play in today's NFL, you got to score 30, keep them under 30. You and I used to have the old mantra, you keep a team under 265 yards in total offense, and you keep a team under 19 points. That was our benchmark on how we would win. Today, it's more you keep them under 300 and you keep them under 30, you're going to win a ball game because the game's evolved into being a passing game because of all the rule changes. So you've got to take that into consideration. What that means is pressure. You got to get pressure on the quarterback, and you got to press those wideouts. You can't let quarterbacks get on their spot. You know, Monty Kiffin used to tell me, you know how to beat Kurt Warner? Knock that dude off his spot. Don't let him sit back there and go 1, 2, 3, throw. 1, 2, 3, throw. Same thing with Manning. How do you do that? You press him at the line of scrimmage, but you got to have talent out there if you're going to press people. And you got to have linebackers that can cover the seam. Today, the tight end has become such a major efficient player in the game. I mean, Seth, think about this. That Tampa 2 defense back in the day that Brooks ran with Monty, Derek Brooks could cover a linebacker and play the run. Like Ryan Shazier. I always say this to people. When the Steelers lost Ryan Shazier, that killed that defense. Because he was the Gronk neutralizer. When you don't have a linebacker like that could cover a Kelsey or could cover some of these guys like Kittle, man, you're lost in transition because that tight end, Gronk's made a living out of today's defenses because linebackers today are not as versatile because, again, it's everything specialized now. Hey, got to have a linebacker that can cover the seam. You got to have corners that can play press coverage, and you got to have an edge rusher that can get to the quarterback. There's no question that the Eagles got holes there on that side. And Gannon's style, I mean, I saw that he interviewed for the Texans job. I was like, I'll tell you what, man, I hope they got better talent than used to because, I mean, dude, from what I saw, he played against some crappy teams. And he got away with it because he played against not the best quarterbacks on the planet. But all I'm saying to you is, hey, man, you've got to be more dominant at the point of attack. They're pretty decent against the run. But like you said, man, they've got to get some pressure and press coverage on those corners if they're going to be successful next year.
Well, let me ask you, you talked about the running game, and there are people out there that believe, especially after the games on Sunday, that the running game is dying on the vine. I'm not one of those people that believe that.
Neither am I.
Yeah, but you would look at the game and believe that. But when you look at some of the other games, you look at the Bills Chiefs. The running backs ran the ball 13 times. The Bengals ran the ball 15 times. 49ers ran it 29. You expect that. They ran it more than they threw it. Green Bay only ran it 19 times. Tampa Bay ran it 13 times because they couldn't establish it. And the Rams were the only team that was kind of balanced. They threw it 38 times and ran it 25 times. I'm going to put you up on a single and let you do your thing right quick. All right.
So here's the thing, though. The one thing here is, without a doubt here, Seth, I mean, look at Garoppolo here. So Jimmy Garoppolo is not part of the running game at all whatsoever. He relies on the running game to be able to get play action pass going. And that's what makes Kittle an effective part of that offense. That's why I really love this 49er team. The Bills rely on that RPO stuff coming from Josh Allen. You look at even a little bit with Patrick Mahomes, more in the run game, being able to move the sticks. If he gets in trouble on 3rd and long, he's going to get out in perimeter and he's going to do it. When you look at Joe Mixon and what the Bengals do, there's no question he's more involved in the passing game. And what's happened there is they're able to set up more, Seth, with some of these quarterbacks, their running attack through the intermediate passing game on 1st and 2nd down. This is why I like the 49ers to make it to the Super Bowl, is because they don't rely on that quarterback in the run game. They are dominant at the point of attack with Trent Williams and them dudes, and they're going to run you off the field there, and they're going to knock your ass out. I think you get in a little bit of trouble when you're asking Josh Allen to do everything. I think you're asking a lot of some of these guys because, again, he's involved in the run game. He's involved in the pass game. He was brilliant on Sunday. Can he do that effectively each and every single night for you to be able to move the sticks? Let's look at Kansas City, for instance. Mahomes doesn't really look to try to gain 75 yards. He was really effective on Sunday on gaining plus yardage. I think he had over 50 yards rushing. But they got Hill. They got Kelsey. They're going to move the sticks with their passing game, and that sets up play action. Seth, what's the worst thing in the world for a linebacker when you're sitting there and you're looking at one of these elite guys? Holy cow, if this guy's got any kind of running game going, play action, you have to honor it. And
Right.
Some of these teams, they get away from it. Like you said, if I know a football team has five carries and they're not going to be committed to running the ball, dude, I'm pinning my ears and I'll do what Aaron Donald does. I'll make TFLs on the fly, and maybe I'll make on a stunt. I'll have a pass rushing stunt on 1st and 2nd down. Hey, if he gains 5 yards, they're not going to be committed to running the ball. So to me, again, you've got to be able to run the ball. Tom Brady relies on play action. Mm-hmm. The great ones, Aaron Rodgers with Aaron Jones, play action pass. The Packers, play action. The 49ers, play action. That keeps everybody honest. When you don't have that and you allow a defense, in today's defense, to just pin your ears, you turn a team into a one-dimensional team. Seth, it's a slow death.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. You're preaching to the choir, because I've been talking about this for years, and everyone talks about, you have to have the quarterback. You have to, but listen, the quarterback has to have weapons. What do these quarterbacks? What does the Rams got weapons? Tampa Bay got weapons. The Bengals got weapons. The Chiefs got weapons. Okay, so as great as these quarterbacks are, they have weapons. Now, when you add the run game to those weapons and you allow a quarterback who really understands how to play the game, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Rodgers,
Allen,
Brady, all of these guys, when you allow these guys that really, really understand coverages, and, you heard Tom Brady a couple of weeks ago say, I don't even ask for the ball until I know where I'm going with the ball. I mean, do you understand, how detrimental that is to a defense, that the quarterback can look at you pre-snap, decipher what you're in, and before he asks for the ball, he already knows where he wants to go with it. Now, he can look off and look you one way and bring you back and come back the other direction, but he already knows where he's going with the ball. So now the most debilitating thing, I talk about this all the time, the most debilitating thing for a defense is when you're having the ball run on you and you can't stop it. Because every single time that he takes that ball from center, whether it's shotgun or whether he's under center, and he sticks that ball out, as a defender, the linebackers and the safeties, they have to honor that. From a defensive lineman's perspective, when you're having the ball just run on you, the last thing you're thinking about is pass rush, because you realize you got to get that run under control, and why this is lost on these coaches, especially, these gurus, if you will, and these front office people that believe that, the only way that you win is by, with a quarterback with a big arm. I'm not advocating that you come out and you just run. I mean, look at the teams that do that. The Baltimore Ravens. Look at, the Tennessee Titans. When they had to put the game on Ryan Tannehill's arm last week, he reverted back to the guy that we saw down in Miami. So I'm not advocating that you just run the football. What I'm advocating is that you got to run it enough to allow your quarterback, especially if he's not an elite level quarterback, the opportunity to run play action pass, because that's the great equalizer for guys who just, if you're giving them a half field read or you're giving whatever you're doing, if you've shrunk your offense to help that guy succeed, then what he needs is a run game to go along with it. And I'm sick and tired of, on Twitter, you hear these talking heads, they just keep going on about, well, this week proved that you got to have an elite quarterback to win. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo certainly isn't elite, is he?
No.
Okay. Joe Burrow, he shows flashes of elite, but the kid's in what, his third year, can he be elite? He's got some elite weapons around him. So if he got any kind of understanding about what they're trying to do with their offense and he can pre-snap read you, the guy's got ice water in his veins. He's going to have some success, But when you talk about elite level quarterbacks, they can do it all. They've played long enough and they've seen it all long enough to be able to be and operate the way that they operate. Not every single quarterback is ready for that. And there are steps to get there. And the impatience and the nonsense that you hear from the data analytics gurus, it just drives me insane, man.
Seth, I'll tell you what's changed from our time. Okay. And I think there's a couple things, because like you said, we were more students of the game. And I'll tell you what's changed so much. The lack of practice time, especially on the defensive side, has really been a factor. And you know this as well as anybody. When quarterbacks came out of college back in the day, and Bill Walsh told me this years ago, what quarterbacks would do is they would roll one way, manage half the field until they saw all the field. A lot of guys like to move. They would move, and you move one side of the hash or you move to another side of the hash. Today, because of the rule changes, the lack of practice, the lack of technique, how many times do you watch a ball game, you see guys wide open? Now, again, I don't want to sound like, oh, man, get off my lawn, dude. But back in the day, those guys weren't open like that, and you got the piss knocked out of you. You weren't coming across the middle on those in routes. You weren't doing any of that. The spacing was limited. Now you've got these giant gaping holes like you're watching an SEC championship game or something, because the lack of technique and the lack of practice time, these quarterbacks don't fear anything any longer, Seth. Right. I mean, these guys on the other side, like what Micah Parsons did this year, as skilled and as talented as he was, being able to put his hand down in the dirt and stand up, cover guys, do all that is so elite. I haven't seen a guy do that came out of college in quite some time. You've got to have fundamental skill sets to be able to do something like that. And here's a kid who went through COVID and didn't play his last year at Penn State. And he walked on that field, and it was like, again, he's not LT, but I'll tell you what, he is in a conversation where he's an elite guy in the league because he can do two things that a lot of guys can't do. Can't put his hand down in the dirt, can't stand up, can't cover tight ends, can't cover running backs out of the backfield that can rush the passer. Man, when you got a guy like that on your football team, it is insane. These quarterbacks have such an advantage. And You can't hit the guys any longer. And look, again, I don't want to sound like old man on my lawn, but the quarterback today has so many avenues now where there's so many open. And that's why, like you said, Seth, Brady walks to the line of scrimmage. It's already predetermined where he's going because, again, that's why I love what Baltimore does. Baltimore does that disguise bunch. They stand in the middle there, and then right before the play goes, they go out to their positions. And what they do is they're trying to make sure that the quarterback doesn't see where the free safety is and where he's trying to see, because the free safety is the first key linebacker, and then you're going to look at who's going to be blitzing, and he's going to set the offensive line and their blocking schemes. There is no question today, these guys go like this. They walk to the line of scrimmage. Okay, the guy in the slot's open. They know that, so you have to be fundamentally sound on that side of the football. Experience on defense, guys who can rush the passer, guys who can play man coverage are essential in today's game. Keep them under 30. You're going to win every ball game.
Well, listen, the problem with defenses are a lot of them are stagnant. When you watch the Eagles defense, they're stagnant. Where they line up is where they're going to be when the ball is snapped. See, back in my day, what, Buddy used to always talk about, move around, for the corners. If you got man coverage, line up 5 yards off the ball, because the quarterback is trying to pre-snap read that. And when the quarterback gets in his cadence, now roll up in the press coverage.
Yeah, but Seth, you had 4 guys that could get to the passer too.
No, listen, I understand that, but the coverage, this part of the game is still the same. Yep. The coverage and the pass rush work hand in hand. Okay, if you got guys that can coverage, and you got guys who will challenge receivers at the line of scrimmage, then that speeds up the process of pass rush getting there, because you're throwing off the timing of these routes. And most of these teams, what they want to do is they want to throw the ball in rhythm. Patrick Mahomes wants to throw a ball to a spot, okay, in rhythm, okay? So when you line up and you don't give the quarterback anything to think about, then he's going to throw the ball in rhythm. But the cornerbacks would get up and get back. They line up inside technique, they get outside technique. But when you line up 3 by 1, and that X receiver on the backside has got a corner that's lined up on him with outside technique, he knows he can have the slant route all day long. All the quarterbacks got to do is just raise up and throw it. It's like playing catch in your front yard.
But Seth, that was the problem in that game where, like, the Eagles versus the Buccaneers, Aikman kept pointing that out. Throw the ball, bro, over there. It was wide open for you, and he didn't see it. That was my biggest issue with Jalen in that game. You've got to see that single coverage, man. When you came to the line of scrimmage, Seth, he can't identify that, or the coaches don't want him to go there. That was such a problem for me, because Aikman was right. I saw you on Twitter too. Dude, you got to spot that. Now, I'm going to give it to him. He's a young player. But, Seth, you got to see that. For him to be the next level type guy, he's got to see that for them to be able to move the sticks.
But what I say in his defense, and I'm not defending how he played. He played like crap. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think even he, would admit to that. But the issue is, you got, 30 coaches on the staff now? Right. Half of them are down on the field. The other half are up in the press box with binoculars. And you mean to tell me that they didn't see, with a week of preparation, you mean to tell me that you didn't see that when Tampa Bay was in cover 3, that the corners were playing 8 yards off the ball, and that you could tell Jalen, hey, when you read cover 3, okay, just an automatic check, 5-yard out, speed out to Devontae Smith on the backside, okay? You don't have to be a genius for that.
Agree.
And I tell people all the time, we don't know the conversations that Nick Sirianni is having with Jalen Hurts in his ear, okay? We're not privy to what he's telling him to run and how he's telling him to approach it. Stick with your progression. Go here with the ball. We don't know that. We just don't know that.
Agreed.
But a veteran quarterback would look out there. Tom Brady would take that 5-6 yards all day long and hope that Devontae Smith could make, Dean, number 35 for Tampa Bay, who is probably their worst cornerback, make him miss, and turn it into a big play. But they didn't throw that route but 2 times in the game. And you want to know what quarter it was? In the fourth quarter. How does that happen to a professional team? How do you allow your young quarterback not to be able to see that and make that adjustment?
Seth, let me throw this at you here. You make a great point about communication. Just think of this for a second. Let me show you where this even plays out in the next round of games. You just mentioned there's 25 coaches that are on a staff. How do the Green Bay Packers not sit there and count 10, 11 guys on the final play for the game-winning field goal that the Niners did? This goes down, like you said. That's a coaching error on the Eagle side, too. There's got to be – that's why when you play against teams like the Patriots or you play against teams that are so well coached, you can always tell, right, Seth? Everything is organized. I always tell people, you know, you could tell a great coaching staff, everything is organizational on the sidelines. Special teams, defense, offense, everybody's in sequence. They know what teams are on, punt coverage, punt block, all that stuff. And you're right. You've got to have guys on the sidelines coming over to Jalen with the tablet going, bro, cover 3, you're over here, man. Just throw it out there. Let them make some plays out there. Same thing in Green Bay with the Packers. We got 10 guys on the field, okay? We got 10 guys in the final game of an NFC divisional game. And I'm not saying that would have changed the game at all, but it just shows you the chaos that goes on sometimes with lack of communications.
Well, listen, there's no doubt about it. And I think this game also will, you know, this weekend right here will shed a new light on, you know, situational football, situational awareness, special teams. You know, listen, Matt LaFleur went in this game knowing that he was at a special teams disadvantage. He said so. The broadcast
in the league.
so. Yeah. And they basically lost that game.
Oh, yes.
Because of the 2 block kicks.
That's right.
They basically lost it just on that.
Niners didn't even score an offensive they didn't score an offensive TD in the game.
No. And as a coach, how do you allow that to happen where you don't have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed, knowing that you have a deficiency in an area and you don't get it addressed before the most important game of the year? So I think that there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of talk about, you know, situational preparedness. You know, you hear coaches always talk about situational football, you know, and it's the same exact thing, you know, with Tampa Bay. How in the world, okay, you tied the game. How do you allow Cooper Kupp to run a seam route
unreal
for 50 plus yards,
Ugh.
you know, in that situation? I don't understand that. I don't understand how that can happen. The guy's been roasting you all game long, and you mean to tell me at the most critical point in the game, if I'm a defensive coordinator, the one thing you can bank on in critical points in the game, the top receiver, that guy is not seeing the football, okay? Because I'm going to put one guy down on him. He's going to take his jam at the line of scrimmage. He's going to play underneath coverage, and then I'm going to have over-the-top help. So we're going to take that guy away and beat me with somebody else. But that guy, you're not beating me with that guy.
Poor read. It's a poor read, right, Seth? I mean, the guy, I don't know what he was reading. I always tell folks this. When you look in the backfield and you're looking for the ball and you're following the ball will always take you away from the play. When you're following your keys in front of you, the keys will always take you to the ball. And to me, I thought Todd Bowles had one of his worst games as a D coordinator since he's been in Tampa Bay. And I'll say that to you. Like you said just a couple minutes ago, you said this, you said you're going to see elite level coaching this weekend. I got a question for you, Seth. And this goes to Andy Reid. And I brought this up on my show earlier today. Is Andy Reid a better coach today than he was in Philadelphia, you think? I mean,
no, absolutely.
It just seems he's more with a relationship with Patrick Mahomes. Now, look, back then I covered the Eagles from 30,000 feet. It just didn't seem to me that his relationship with Donovan was the same relationship that I'm seeing in Kansas City. Is he a better coach today?
Listen, as great as Donovan McNabb was, as great of a Philadelphia quarterback that Donovan McNabb was, I don't know that Andy was ever in a position, because you got to understand, he came from Mike Holmgren. Mike Holmgren tried to manage every single thing about Brett Favre, but he couldn't, because Brett was just a freewheeler and Brett made things happen. Okay. I think Andy came into Philadelphia with the mindset that my quarterback and we're going to be linked, but I'm going to control a lot more of what he does on the football field. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, I mean, I don't know if you read the quote. Travis Kelce comes to Patrick Mahomes before that touchdown that ends the game. He says, listen, I know where a spot on the field is going to be open. I'm not going to run the route that's called. I'm going to run a out and up. And I guarantee you, Andy Reid has no problem with things like that, because you know what? Even if they don't complete that pass, they're still going to convert the first down on the next play and keep the drive alive. But he trusts those guys. He trusts Patrick Mahomes to make plays and do things in a way that maybe he didn't necessarily trust Donovan McNabb to do. And let's just be honest about it too. Donovan McNabb never had the kind of weapons that Patrick Mahomes had. So of
That's
course,
right. Kelce and Hill, those guys are spectacular.
Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Hill, Nicole Hardman.
Yep.
These guys, when you have a roster and those kinds of weapons, those guys can make Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid look like superstars, you know? So it's not that I'm not trying to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes, because I think the guy's phenomenal. And I think that, he'll go down as the greatest quarterback potentially to ever play the game from a statistical standpoint. I don't think he'll ever catch Brady as far as Super Bowls are concerned. But when we look back at this guy's career, he will be the best to ever play the game, bar none.
There's no doubt, though, too, Seth, that if you're going to try to get to a Super Bowl, it goes through Kansas City for the next 10 years.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Unless Patrick Mahomes gets hurt,
right?
They're going to be there every single year. All right, so as we wind down, I just want to jump through these games one at a time and get your opinions, okay? Bengals Titans, okay? The Bengals win this game 19-16. Joe Burrow, didn't throw a touchdown, threw one interception, but had a 300-yard passing day, and Joe Mixon just was doing it. The Tennessee defense sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. How do you sack a team 9 times and wind up losing the game? To me, the equalizer is 3 turnovers.
Absolutely, and resolve. That guy, Joe Burrow, man, I mean, when he came out of LSU, and think about this, for instance, too, when you're talking Joe Burrow. I love the kid's journey. He was told by Urban Meyer and Ryan Day at Ohio State, you weren't good enough to be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. So what's he do? Here's a journey like Jalen Hurts a little bit. He goes to LSU. He plays with all those tremendous players down at LSU, and he wins a national title, and he wins the Heisman Trophy. Everybody goes like this. Well, he played with a whole bunch of guys. There was something about the way this guy's journey and what he likes and plays with a lumberyard on his shoulder. This guy doesn't play with a chip on his shoulder. He plays with a lumberyard. Remember, this guy got hurt last year in mid-part of the season, and he wanted to get back in there so much. Think about what else he's done. And Seth knows this as well as anybody. This guy changed the culture in Cincinnati. That's like changing the culture in New York with the Jets. This guy changed it. I cannot believe Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Mixon. They've got 2,000-yard wideouts, 1,000-yard rusher, and they've got a quarterback that threw for over 4,000 yards, and they're all under the age of 26. They're going to be there for the next couple of years. This kid, Zach Taylor, I got to tell you, the coach of the team, I had to look him up. I didn't know who the hell he was. And they got something special there. Do I think they're in the same room with Kansas City? No, but, boy, I saw resolve in that team, and they got a great brotherhood there in Cincinnati.
And I tell you this before I move on to the next game, that defense.
Yeah,
that
underrated.
Defense is a lot better. Like the offense is getting all the glory, but if you really sit back and you watch that defense, they've done a phenomenal job of putting that
underrated
defense together. And that defense they aren't a joke at all. I mean, they got some players, some guys that we haven't heard of that's over there making plays. Second game, 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. Of course, we know the outcome of this. The 13-10 loss with Aaron Rodgers. Now all the questions surrounding whether he'll be back. I saw a guy on ESPN say, the Packers need to cut the cord and be done with Aaron Rodgers. He's tired of him holding them hostage. I'm like, if they went through what they went through with Brett Favre, okay, then they can certainly endure Aaron Rodgers for another year or two. Listen, you don't shut the window on your playoff run. Normally the window closes on you, and by them moving on, they'll be closing their own window, and Matt LaFleur will be putting his own livelihood at risk, because not only will they not be in the playoffs next year, but they won't even win the division for the next 5 years if they let Aaron Rodgers walk away from Green Bay.
Let me show you something, folks. The people that are watching us right now. In my contract, if we make the playoffs, Big Sills gets a $250,000 bonus. Big Sills makes the defense. Okay, we're in the top 10. Quarterback plays a factor. That's $150,000. If you think players on that Packer team want to see Aaron Rodgers leave for Jordan Love, you are smoking crack. Nobody on that team wants to see that guy leave. But I'll tell you this about that game, Seth. That Deebo Samuel kid, I didn't know who he was. I had to look it up. I don't remember him at South Carolina, but that guy's a freak show. You can line him up in the backfield. You can put him in the seam. You can put him in the slot. You can put him out wide. Man, what a ball player he is. He is some football player. The offensive line with Trent Williams, they line him up in the backfield. They bring him in motion, and he's blowing dudes off the line of scrimmage. By the way, them getting him from Washington shows you how inept the Washington team was. You don't let a guy like Trent Williams go and just let that guy walk out the door like that. He's a beast. The 49ers were dominant at the point of attack, and to me, it just came down to one thing. The Packers struggled all year long, Seth, in stopping the run, and it played out in that ball game. Garoppolo didn't have to be sensational, but he's never had to be. You know what I love? People do this all the time about Aaron Rodgers. Well, Aaron Rodgers is 12-11 in the postseason, and, you know, he's great. He does this and that. Well, and you rip him now. Well, you've got to give Garoppolo the credit. He's 35-11. He's 35-15-1 as a starter in San Francisco, and he's 4-1 in the postseason. This guy's 39-16 as a starting quarterback, and he's going to his second NFC Championship game in 3 years. You can have Aaron Rodgers, but I'll take the team in San Francisco because that was a team effort. Garoppolo's numbers don't lie. Like you know, Seth, as well as anybody. Hey, man, expectations, great. You talk about how great this guy is. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo wins ball games. And you can't rip one guy for not delivering in the postseason, but then you can't dismiss this other guy because he does deliver. Garoppolo wins ball games. And here he is again, second time in 3 years in the NFC title game.
The big question will be, you know, when they line up against the Rams are going to have an opportunity, and the Rams are built to slow down Deebo Samuel and what they do in the run game. The question will be, can Jimmy Garoppolo now, with the game on his arm, and if they get behind in that game and they have to throw it, I got to feel it might be lights out. Okay.
How about this, Seth? How about this, though? Kyle Shanahan 6-0 against Sean McVay. And, I mean, you know, they've had their number. They have not beaten him since he's been in San Francisco. And to me, that's because that team, like you and I talked about a couple segments ago, dude, they're big on in the O-line, and they're big on that defensive line. There are some horses on that D-line. They get after folks, man. And I mean, they run to the ball. You know, I think sometimes the Rams get too much into finesse a little bit sometimes. I'll tell you, man, I think this is going to be – if this game is low scoring, I think the 49ers win that ball game.
I don't think it'll be low scoring. But let's jump to the third game, the Rams and Tampa Bay. And, man, you talk about a defense stepping up and then the GOAT figuring out a way to bring them back, and the craziest ending to a game. I mean, you claw all the way back just to give it away on a field goal. A lot of questions about what Tom Brady will do. You know, and the clock is ticking on this Rams football team, because you got to imagine that salary cap wise, they've got to be handicapped. If they don't get it done this year, what does this team look like next year? How do they psychologically rebound if they don't close the deal this year?
I'll tell you something. The Melvin Ingram signed by the Chiefs was enormous, but also I think the sign of Von Miller by the Rams on the other side of a pass rusher and Aaron Donald. I mean, Von Miller over the last 3 weeks looks like old Von Miller in Denver, and he's become a factor for the Rams. I mean, pressure was key in this game. 3 quarters, they got to Brady, and Brady started doing, instead of 7-step, I thought he went more to a 5-step, and I thought he started being able to get more in rhythm and he started finding Gronk. And I thought Brady did a better job of moving around in the pocket in the fourth, and that's what allowed him to get open. Then the defense made some turnovers, and they got the big turnover at the end of the game. They stripped the ball, like you said, 27-27, and then the defense just lets up a 50-yard pass down the middle of the football field. Boy, I'll tell you something. If you're the Bucs, they get that game in overtime. I really like to have seen what Brady could have done in overtime, but give it to the Rams. I mean, they held on. You know, they were drowning a little bit as the game was going on. They kept their head above water, and they were able to make the kick and win the ball game. But pressure was the key in that game, in my opinion.
Okay, game 4, and probably the most epic game of the weekend, Chiefs and the Bills. I mean, I'm heartbroken for Josh Allen, because this guy, to me, he just balled out. Not that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs didn't deserve to win. They did what they needed to do to win. But I mean, this game was just epic. I mean, you couldn't have sat down with a typewriter and 5 bales of paper and written a better outcome to this game. But man, it was just an epic game, just one big play after another. And when it looked like the Bills were faltering, that that they were going to lose control of it, boom, 70-something yard touchdown, to put them right back in the game to just stun the Chiefs.
I say this about Josh Allen, and I'm wondering if you would subscribe to this. When John Elway was younger, he moved around a lot and he ran more when he was younger. This kid looks like a modern-day John Elway to me. Big cannon arm, big guy. People don't realize when you're on a field with John Elway, Elway's a big dude. And he's bigger than you think, and he was faster than you thought. This guy here might be a better version of that. And he's gotten so much better because think about this, for instance, Seth. He's at Wyoming. What kind of coaching do you think he really got with a coach who's underwater right now, 500? His best coaching now is with Sean McDermott. Look what they've done to this guy and how the coaching has affected him. Man, these two guys are going to run the AFC for a long time. I mean, God, that was such a great game. Such a great play calling game, too, by McDermott and Reed. I mean, everything. Defensive plays were made. Kelsey was spectacular. Hill, I thought, was the game-changing guy in this game. Every time he touched the ball, it seemed like he got a 15-yard gain for them. Got him out of trouble. How about the dive into the end zone by Mahomes, too? That was the best game that Mahomes played all year. They struggled early in the year because Chris Jones or whatever was moved outside, Seth. They had injuries inside on the defensive tackle position, so they moved them outside, and they struggled with the run. When they got Melvin Ingram and they put him down inside, back inside where he belongs, Chris Jones, they were able to stop the run. And that sign there put everybody in the chess pieces back in order defensively for the Chiefs. That sign, in my opinion, was an instrumental sign for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it put everybody back on page again. And that's why I think they're rolling right now. But like you said, I've talked to everybody from back then to today. That's the best game I've seen divisionally, maybe one of the best playoff games I've ever seen.
It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Okay, so that being said, who do you like? Chiefs, Bengals, 49ers, Rams.
I got to take the Chiefs in this one, man. They're at home. They're at Arrowhead. You know how hard it is to go in there. Hey, and I heard Joe Burrow going, hey, man, it's really loud in the SEC. Well, you ain't been to Arrowhead yet. Okay. Okay. So I got the Chiefs at home. I think it will be closer than what people think. I think Kansas City pulls away. Over on the other side, man, I'll tell you, I think this 49er team, I think they're in the head of the Rams. They're 6-0 versus them, Kyle Shanahan. I think Aaron Donald's playing tremendous football, but that 49er team goes, hey, you go into Lambeau and you win that game, I think you go into SoFi and win that game too.
Interesting. Well, guys, that's the show for today. Dan, thank you so much. I tell my guests every week, our time is our most valuable commodity. So I thank you for spending the last 60 minutes with me. To my viewers, hey, listen, you guys get over here in the comment area, put your predictions up, follow me on Twitter. I'll be lighting Twitter up on Sunday with the AFC and NFC Championship game going on. Looking forward to it. Again, my friend, thank you. I appreciate your time. Let's do it again. And thanks to, my producer, Zach James behind the scenes, pulling all the levers and, getting everything, going great. And as always, be good to each other and take care of each other. But most importantly, make sure you love each other. I'll see you guys right back here next week. We'll be chatting it up again on the Seth Joyner Show. Peace.